There are two rules for this video. First, the villain must actually die at the end of the encounter, not escape or live with low health. Second, as a more general rule, the more dramatic the death, the higher up the list it goes. And at number 10, we have Varo'then. Even lore nerds might not know this villain, but Varo'then served as Queen Hyjal's personal bodyguard during the War of the Ancients. Players encounter Varo'then in the last fight of the Well of Eternity dungeon. In this dungeon, the Bronze Dragonflight takes players back in time to the War of the Ancients, where they help stop the first invasion of the Burning Legion and witness the betrayal of Neltharion. Since Varo'then is a fairly minor villain with little lore importance, he lands at number 10 on this list. However, most players will recognize the other main final boss of the Well of Eternity, which is the Pit Lord Manaroth. Players actually fight Manaroth as a boss 2 different times throughout the game. The first time is in the Well of Eternity dungeon from the Cataclysm expansion, and the second time is an undead version of him which appears in the final raid for Warlords of Draenor expansion, Hellfire Citadel. Varo'then appears twice in the Well of Eternity dungeon. The first time is shortly after the second fight with Queen Hyjal, after which he escorts her to safety. The second time, as mentioned previously, is during the final boss encounter at the edge of the Well turned Legion portal itself. In this final battle in the dungeon, players face off against both Varo'then and Manaroth. At the end of the battle, Manaroth is sucked back into the portal with 1 health left, meaning he does not die, so unfortunately can't be included on this list. However, Varo'then does indeed die. In fact, there are 2 ways in which Varo'then can die. The first is by players simply killing him. The other way is if the players DPS Manaroth to 1 health before Varo'then dies. This prompts Manaroth to sacrifice Varo'then to heal himself and results in the players getting an achievement named That's Not Canon, which is required for the Cataclysm Glory achievement. Although a pretty minor villain, being sacrificed by a Pit Lord shortly before the world partially implodes during the Sundering is one heck of a way to go. So Varo'then does get the number 10 spot on this list. And at number 9, we have Argus. Argus the Unmaker is the final boss of the raid Antorus, the Burning Throat, which also makes him the final boss of the Legion expansion. The Titan of Death is the result of the Burning Legion using it as an inexhaustible machine to fuel their endless armies. The sleeping Titan soul of the planet that the Draenei once called home is the first and only Titan to have been slain by the players. This is shown in game when, upon completing the achievement Argus the Unmaker, the player is rewarded with the title Titan Slayer. With the help of the Titan Pantheon, the players survive the encounter. In many ways, the fight is unique and notable for being one of the few times that the game actually kills the players. About halfway through the fight, Argus kills the entire raid, and this cannot be avoided. Luckily, Eonar quickly finds a way to revive the players, although the amount of resurrection she can provide is limited. While the Argus fight does not end in the most spectacular death, it does mark the biggest defeat of a villain in WoW, and effectively ends the Burning Legion. The death of Argus also starts most of the events of the Shadowlands expansion with the death of something as grand as a Titan, overwhelming the Arbiter and causing it to shut down. The resulting cinematic, the capstone of the Legion expansion, is something to behold as it plays as soon as Argus has been killed. Purely for the ramifications and the lore importance of this fight, the death of Argus definitely deserves a spot on this list. But it does come in near last place since Argus's death itself isn't too dramatic and he just sort of kneels over, with his last lines thanking the players for putting him out of his misery. At number 8, we have the old god Y'Shaarj. Prior to the Titans arriving on Primordial Azeroth, Y'Shaarj was the largest and most powerful old god on the planet. The Titans and their keepers had such a hard time battling Y'Shaarj that eventually Aman'Thul, the leader of the Titans, came to Azeroth to deal with the problem firsthand. Titans are giant beings, bigger than planets, and so Aman'Thul grabbed Y'Shaarj and ripped him out of the ground like a tick. He then proceeded to yeet the corpse of Y'Shaarj into the twisting nether. Since players never directly face Y'Shaarj, we've only put him at number 8. However, players do encounter the remnants and evil spirit of Y'Shaarj, mainly in the form of the 7 Shahs in Pandaria, as well as the heart of Y'Shaarj. Because of this, Y'Shaarj serves as a posthumous villain alongside the war chief Garrosh Hellscream in the final boss of the Mists of Pandaria expansion. After the end of the Siege of Orgrimmar raid, Garrosh is defeated and the last remnant of the old god dissipates into nothingness. This makes Y'Shaarj the only old god to be confirmed to be very much dead, although his giant corpse could still be floating in space somewhere. Since players can't go back in time to see Aman'Thul yanking the giant old god out of the surface of Azeroth, we can only imagine this amazing scene. Killing Y'Shaarj did significant damage to Azeroth, however, and the Titans realized they could not kill all the old gods without killing Azeroth. Instead, they decided to imprison the remaining 3 old gods, and the site where Y'Shaarj was plucked from eventually coalesced into the Well of Eternity. Being pulled like a weed and yeeted out into space sure is one heck of a way to go, and the villainous Y'Shaarj burrows his way into number 8 on this list. And at number 7, we have Gul'dan from the first 2 original Warcraft games. While we could spend an entire video on the machinations and incredible power wielded by this warlock before and during the First and Second Wars, we're instead only going to focus on his death in Warcraft 2. There are also some flashbacks to Gul'dan in Warcraft 3, but Gul'dan dies for sure in Warcraft 2. During the events of the Second World Warcraft 2, Gul'dan betrays the First Horde as it's about to attack Lordaeron. Seeking even greater power, he departs Eastern Kingdoms with several companies still loyal to him in search for the Eye of Sargeras, an incredibly powerful artifact once yielded by the Avatar of Sargeras. Chafing under the bonds of the domineering Burning Legion, Gul'dan sought this powerful weapon to finally be able to stand up to the Burning Legion and control his own destiny. After abandoning the First Horde, Gul'dan set sail for the Broken Isle to search for the Eye of Sargeras in the Tomb of Sargeras, where the guardian Aegwynn had buried the Avatar of Sargeras. Using his mind-boggling power, he lifted the broken shore from the seafloor and entered the tomb with a contingent of loyal orcs. Once inside, he was promptly torn apart by demons. We don't have specifics, but I like to think it was being torn apart by zombies kind of death. Needless to say, this was a pretty painful death, and Gul'dan's corpse would remain in the tomb until Illidan went to search for the Eye of Sargeras in Warcraft 3, where he found the skull of Gul'dan. And at number 6, we have Archimonde the Defiler. In WoW, players first face off and kill this Eredar general of the Burning Legion not once, but twice. For this death, we'll be focused on Archimonde's death at Nordrassil, which players re-experience in the Battle for Mount Hyjal raid thanks to the Bronze Dragon time-wimey shenanigans. We'll be focusing on this death, which can be seen in 2 different games, rather than Archimonde's death at the end of Hellfire Citadel raid from the World of Draenor expansion, since his death there isn't so dramatic. Archimonde serves as the final boss at the end of the Night Elf campaign in Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos. With the help of Jaina, Thrall, and Tyrande, and many soldiers, enough time is bought for Malfurion to defeat Archimonde in a particularly dramatic fashion while he's trying to assault the World Tree Nordrassil. Swarmed by wisps summoned by Malfurion, the souls of the Night Elves amass upon Archimonde and overwhelm him. This event can be seen in the cinematic, which is the final cinematic of Warcraft 3 at the end of the Night Elf campaign, which is called Eternity's End. However, this was not without great costs, as much of the land around Mount Hyjal was severely damaged in the following explosion, and it also ended the Night Elves' immortality. While the cinematic is something to behold, players can also experience the same event in-game after bringing Archimonde down to low health at the end of the Battle for Mount Hyjal raid. While the raid remains one of the least liked raids in all of WoW, its ending is satisfying as players can see the wisps overwhelm Archimonde in-game. Technically, this is not the exact same death of Archimonde in Warcraft 3 because of the meddlings of the Infinite Dragonflight, but for all intents and purposes, how Archimonde dies in both cases is identical. Still being swarmed by nature spirits to the point of going out in a massive explosion is pretty epic. So we're giving the number 6 spot to Archimonde's death at Nordrassil. And at number 5, we have the former Horde Warchief Garrosh Hellscream. While Garrosh has a long history in WoW, his death comes at the hands of Thrall in the World of Draenor expansion. While WoD remains a controversial expansion, Garrosh's death serves as one of the last plot points in the initial assault on Draenor. Towards the end of Quest in Negran, Thrall challenges Garrosh to a Mak'gora, and a cinematic plays. During the cinematic, Thrall and Garrosh meet at the Stones of Prophecy for a one-on-one duel. This site holds a special significance in the relationship, as it was where they first met on Outland, and Garrosh also first learned of his father's sacrifice and redemption. This is actually not the first Mak'gora between Garrosh and Thrall, with the first one taking place right before the event of Wrath of the Lich King. The first Mak'gora was actually interrupted when the Scourge attacked Orgrimmar. During the second Mak'gora atop the hills in Negran, the fight is at first an even draw, but Garrosh quickly gains the upper hand as seen in the cinematic. When Thrall gets his butt handed to him, he uses his ability as a shaman to defeat Garrosh. He traps him in an earthen grip before using a single bolt of lightning to kill him. While nothing explicitly states magic and shamanism cannot be used in Mak'goras, many players felt that Thrall had somehow cheated. Even Garrosh in his fight at the Sanctum of Domination calls Thrall a coward. Because of this perceived sentiment and the general lackluster reception to WoD and Shadowlands as a whole, this epic duel that ends in Garrosh's death is at number 5 on this list. That shouldn't distract from how great this fight scene is though, and the cinematic is definitely worth rewatching several times. And at number 4, we have Deathwing the Destroyer. Known by many names and titles, this dragon was the former Black Dragon aspect Neltharion and the Earth Warden. Deathwing has a long and storied past, far too much to go into detail in this video. But since we're focusing on his death, we need to go to the final raid of the Cataclysm expansion, Dragonsoul. Deathwing serves as the last 2 bosses of the Dragonsoul raid, and is the final boss of the Cataclysm expansion. After Thrall animates Deathwing about 2/3 of the way into the raid, players pursue Deathwing on an Alliance gunship, dropping from the gunship onto the back of Deathwing equipped with parachutes, which starts the infamous Spine of Deathwing encounter. With his Elementium plates peeled and burst off, Deathwing falls into the Maelstrom. Here, the madness of Deathwing begins, which is the final encounter of the raid. Remember that when the old god Y'Shaarj from the number 8 spot was plucked up, the massive hole formed the Well of Eternity. The Well of Eternity shortly became the Maelstrom shortly after the events of the number 10 spot. This means that players actually fight Deathwing where the main body of Y'Shaarj once was located. With the help of the dragon aspects and Thrall, players managed to finally kill Deathwing. Throughout these two encounters, Deathwing is literally falling apart as the old god's corruption wreaks havoc on his body, causing his blood to boil and tentacles of fiery corruption to emerge, both of which can be seen in these two encounters. The end of the Dragon Soul raid ends with Deathwing's death, with his corpse disintegrating and leaving behind only some jaw fragments. The scene of a giant, edgy black dragon gone crazy and filled with old god corruption, who is stuck inside a giant whirlpool, sure is a sight to behold. Although the reception to Dragon Soul in general was mixed, most can agree that Deathwing's final defeat and death sure is very unique and a memorable moment. Next up at number 3, we have Kil'Jaeden. Both Archimonde and Kil'Jaeden took up Sargeras on his offer to join the Burning Legion, while Velen did not. Kil'Jaeden had a deep hatred for Velen, and his hatred directly caused many of the main events of Warcraft. Kil'Jaeden also created the first Lich King, Ner'zhul. Although Kil'Jaeden dies in the Legion expansion, this is not the first time players fight Kil'Jaeden. Kil'Jaeden almost dies at the end of the Sunwell Plateau raid. Here, at low health, he gets sucked back into the Sunwell. It is possible this left several scars on Kil'Jaeden's face, since his Legion model has scars that his TBC model did not. Kil'Jaeden is finally killed at the end of the Tomb of Sargeras raid in the Legion expansion. After players foil his plan to unleash the Avatar Sargeras, he flees into a Legion portal into his command ship in the Twisting Nether above Argus. Players follow him onto this ship to help him defeat him in an epic fight with the help of Khadgar, Velen, and Illidan. When finally brought to low health, a cinematic plays. The cinematic ends with some touching words between Kil'Jaeden and Velen as the Legion ship starts to careen into Argus. Upon touching Kil'Jaeden's forehead, it almost looks like Velen granted him a sense of peace before he finally dies. You almost feel a pang of sadness as he explodes into a blast of fel energy, and everyone else escapes using Sargeras' keystone. If Kil'Jaeden did not succumb to his wounds or the initial fel explosion, the remnants of his ship disintegrated upon hitting the surface of Argus, meaning his corpse was completely obliterated. In fact, players can even find the crash site of the ship when they quest and explore in Argus. Dying on a falling spaceship in a fiery fel explosion onto his fel-ravaged homeworld, Kil'Jaeden's death is definitely one worth remembering. And at number 2, for the best Warcraft villain death, we have Gul'dan from the alternate universe. Introduced in Worlds of Draenor, this Gul'dan was transported to Azeroth by the number 6 on this list, Archimonde, right before he died. It was Gul'dan who was largely responsible for the third invasion of the Burning Legion, and his actions set off most of the events in the Legion expansion. AU Gul'dan meets his demise atop the Nightwell in Suramar City, where he serves as the final boss of the Nighthold raid. After players stop Gul'dan from using Illidan's crystallized body as a gateway for Sargeras to enter Azeroth, at low health, the fight ends and a cinematic plays. In the cinematic, Illidan breaks free from his Felblood prison and immediately ends Gul'dan in a horrific fashion. Illidan pumps Gul'dan full of fel magic, causing him intense agony. But Illidan doesn't let up and continues to painfully choke Gul'dan with one hand while the Warlock turns into a poof of dust. Afterwards, Illidan can be seen holding Gul'dan's fel-infused skull, which he then also promptly crushes into nothingness with one hand. This is probably the most painful death of any Warcraft villain. And while it's an epic comeuppance, there are also 3 motifs that are repeated. First, Gul'dan's last line, "This cannot be," is nearly identical to what the original Gul'dan said at his death during the number 7 spot. Second, Illidan holding Gul'dan's skull, just like he does in Warcraft 3, is also repeated. Finally, Gul'dan's death is karmic justice, as the way in which Illidan kills AU Gul'dan is strikingly similar to the way Gul'dan killed King Varian Wrynn after the disastrous failed assault on the Broken Shore. Alternate Universe Gul'dan's death is extremely satisfying, but his death cannot compare to the number 1 spot. And finally, at number 1, we have the Lich King, of course. No other villain in Warcraft universe has as much charisma, detailed history, and player interactions than the Lich King does. A longtime fan favorite since Warcraft 3, for very good reasons, the Lich King that was once Arthas, Prince of Lordaeron, meets his doom atop Icecrown Citadel during the final raid of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. There are entire videos just on the history of Arthas, but one notable thing about this villain is that he has a vested interest in the player and the obstacles they overcome, as his plan, he reveals to Tyrion, is that he will kill the strongest adventurers and raise them to be his strongest Death Knights. However, before he can finish the process, Tyrion calls upon the light and shatters Frostmourne, the Lich King's powerful blade, which steals the souls of its victims. With their prison broken, the thousands of souls swarm Arthas, levitating him into the air. Arthas faces his death quite calmly and stoically, and then a famous cinematic plays. Through several lines in the cinematic and follow-up quests after Arthas is defeated, it is shown that there was some good part of Arthas left in the Lich King, making him a more tragic character. The line, "Father, is it over?" and the fact that Arthas still carried Jaina's locket are proof of this. While the Lich King's death isn't as extreme as Gul'dan's atop the Nighthold, it bears more weight because of the storytelling and emotional impact it has on so many characters. Even without considering those factors, being suspended in midair by thousands of souls that were slain by his hands at the top of the world sure is one heck of a way to go. I'm sure many people will disagree with this list, so put your comments below on who should have been included in this video. Be sure to leave ideas or suggestions for future videos if you have any as well. See you in the next one, and always remember, no one's ever really gone.